Everyone, this is a webinar to review the 2013 Leader College Recertification application. I'm Sarah Hollister, Associate Director of Programs here at Achieving the Dream. On the call, we also have Rhonda Glover, who is our Senior Director of Data Coaching. Here to go ahead and help us answer any questions you might have. Just a reminder, this is a webinar going over the recertification application. It's for colleges that have been a Leader College for 3 years and then will need to recertify in order to maintain their Leader College status. I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation first, but I'd like to just note that I see many people are logged in, but they haven't necessarily entered their, it's called your sound pin. And so you need to in order to ask a question verbally, you would need to put in that pin number so I could unmute you. But of course, you can also put in questions in the question pane, and we can also answer questions that way. I'm going to ask you to hold on questions for a little while until I go over some of the basics of the application, and then the majority of the time will be for your questions about the application. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So the agenda today, I am going to talk a little bit about the background of the Leader College designation, and then also the Leader College review team. And then I'll go in and talk about the criteria for practice and performance for meeting recertification. And I will also then review the recertification application components. And of course, get any questions or feedback you might have. So Achieving the Dream began awarding Leader College status in 2009. And the designation was and is based on performance criteria and practice criteria. Performance criteria is measured by at least 3 years of sustained improvement on at least one of the Achieving the Dream student success measures. And I think we're all pretty familiar with those measures. And then the criteria for practice is measured by an annual coach assessment that is done of the colleges by the coaches. You can see here the different rounds of Leader Colleges that we've had. To date, a total of 66 colleges have been awarded Leader College status. And of course, when Achieving the Dream established Leader Colleges, it was determined that they would serve for 3 years and then need to apply for recertification. So this is the group, the 2010 cohort of colleges that must complete the 2013 Leader College recertification application. So this is in order to maintain your Leader College status. Of course, you do not necessarily have to complete the application, but then you would no longer, your college would no longer be designated as a Leader College. So I just want to take a moment to talk briefly about how the Leader College recertification process was developed. As many of you know, in 2012, Achieving the Dream formed the Leader College review team to assist ATD with reviewing the Leader College application process for initial Leader College status, and also for providing recommendations on a recertification process. The team was made up of a diverse group of representatives from our first cohorts of Leader Colleges, and led by Dr. Karen Stout from Montgomery County Community College in Pennsylvania. I know we have some of the representatives on the call today, and I just want to thank them for their time and attention to this effort. The review team did an amazing job of reviewing the Leader College criteria an application and providing some wonderful recommendations for a fair and fair recertification process. So thank you to them. We have this process. So just to review the recommendations that they made about recertification were that the current Leader College framework is relevant for recertification process. They added some minimum requirements for a few additional criteria, such as strategic planning and the such. And then they also suggested that colleges complete the principals assessment as a self-assessment. You can see the full recommendations at the website. This did inform the first application process, which we did in 2012. And the 2013 application is almost identical to the 2012 application. Now we'll review how a college's criteria for practice and performance is assessed in this process. A Leader College's progress in the area of practice is measured several different ways. First of all, the college's coaches complete the principal's assessment and submit this to ATD, that's the college. This is done every year by the coaches and marks the progress of the college related to the core principles of the Achieving the Dream institutional improvement model. This is, again, done by the coaches, so there's no further action required of the colleges. The coaches will submit this directly to Achieving the Dream. We also take into consideration the college self-assessment, which is done by the college completing the principal's assessment. So again, this was done by the colleges as part of the 2013 annual reflection. And so the commentary that colleges provided in their annual reflection on this will be considered with the in terms of this criteria for practice. So again, as long as the college has submitted the annual reflection, there's no further action required of the colleges or the coaches. And then finally, the college will provide some evidence on the ability to lead in the community college field. And this is in the narrative section of the application. A key component of being a Leader College is providing support to other community colleges, both within the Achieving the Dream network and the larger community college field. So there's a question related to that in the narrative. A college's performance is assessed according to the student success data that you will submit in the data template. So you all should be somewhat familiar with the Excel document that is the data template. And it's here where colleges are asked to submit data on at least 2 Achieving the Dream student success measures over 3 or more years, plus a baseline year of data, ideally showing an upward trend. And the data must be submitted in these data templates. This is the second year that we've used the templates, and we found that they've really allowed colleges to submit data to Achieving the Dream that is consistent and tracks cohorts accordingly. So this is an ongoing process, however, so if you have any trouble with the data templates, please let me know, and we can adjust them if need be or help you out. College will also provide data on the interventions or initiatives that the college attributes to the success data. So the way that this will happen this year, because colleges submitted or updated their information on interventions in the intervention showcase, it will be very easy that you'll just have to list those initiatives that you attribute to the student success that is seen in your data. And then some additional information will also be required in the narrative section regarding scaling. So for one intervention or one initiative, the college will be asked to submit some data on students served and percentage of those students in order for Achieving the Dream to determine the level of scaling done. Finally, I just want to emphasize that the narrative part of the data component of the application is very important. So within the narrative in the application, this is where the college has the opportunity to explain the student outcome data, the interventions, and any other progress. So this is very important because really what we're looking to see is not only have you increased your student success, but can you analyze the data? Can you dig down deeper, look at the data fluctuations, look at the achievement gaps and other factors that might be affecting the data, and sufficiently explain this to a third party in the application. So the narrative section is a very important part of the application. So just to review, the Leader College Recertification application has several components. The first thing that I want to note is that the application is supplemental to the annual reflection and the intervention showcase information that the college has just completed. So reviewers will look at the college's annual reflection as well as the recertification application. So it is seen as a supplement to that. So we'll get the complete context and picture of the college. As long as your college has submitted the annual reflection and updated the intervention showcase, there's no further action to take in terms of that piece of the application. If your college has not submitted the annual reflection, then that will be a key part that will need to be gotten in pretty soon. Then, of course, you also have the data template, and this is where you will submit your student success data. And then, as I mentioned before, the application narrative. And the narrative should be entered in the appropriate boxes in the application narrative section. So I know it's a bit burdensome, but if you could leave all of the instructions and the questions and just submit your answer in the boxes, that will greatly assist our reviewers. So at this point, I just want to pause and see if there are any questions. You can ask a question in the pane, or you can go ahead and raise your hand, and I can unmute you. I will be going over the timeline in just a sec. But if there are any questions about the application components or the criteria at this time, not seeing any. I guess that's a good sign. Okay, well, I'll go on with the presentation, and then we'll have an opportunity for more questions. So the timeline that's involved with this is, again, May 15th, all the colleges, in 2013 annual reflections were due from all colleges. So that should already be submitted, and hopefully it is. If not, please work to get that in. At the end of June, the coaches will submit feedback to Achieving the Dream, including that principles assessment that I was referring to earlier. So no further action is needed by the colleges. This is the coaches that will do this. And then on August 21st, the colleges will submit the applications to Achieving the Dream. And this will be done via a link on the Leader College Recertification page, which was sent out to everyone in the notification email. And then, of course, in late fall, after the review period is done, the colleges and coaches will be notified of their recertification status. Just a few general instructions for the application. Please read the application instructions carefully. There's a lot of information in there. The same goes for the data templates. There's a lot of information in the data templates to help you out in submitting your data. So please do look at those carefully. Please be sure to answer all questions. That way we don't have to go back and forth, and we'll have all the information we need for a speedy review. Again, look at the data template and the instructions carefully. Also, realize that in the data template there's certain definitions on how to define certain measures, and there's also some drop-downs that will guide you through the submission. Please be sure to name your documents with the college name, a description of what it is, and the date. This is particularly important because when I have 10 applications that we're downloading and they all say Vera College application, recertification without a college name, it can be hard to make sure we're reviewing the right one, so please be sure to do that. And then, of course, ask questions. If you have questions as you're moving along with this process, please be sure to go ahead and send an email to info@achievingthedream.org, and we'll get your question answered right away. I'm available to talk things through on the phone if necessary. So please don't be afraid to ask questions as you're going through the process. So at this point, I'm going to see if there are any questions that you all might have about the application. Again, you can raise your hand, and I can unmute you, or you can go ahead and type your question into the question box, and we'll be able to read it out loud. No questions? Rhonda, do you want to say a few words about the application?
No, I'm hoping that, let me take you off speaker and speak directly into the phone. It's a little easier. I'm hoping that everyone is understanding all the definitions that were included and how this process works, and that the coaches don't make the final decision on just the practice criteria and the performance criteria. All of this information is compiled, and there's a review team that goes through this. So there are multiple steps to this process. After you submit your application, then it's carefully reviewed. Sometimes you might hear from Sarah or someone at ATD Inc. who would contact you with a question, or we might contact a coach to ask them for clarification on something that we might not understand. So Sarah's advice about trying to really take time for the narrative is really good advice to make sure that your narrative actually supports the data that you've presented and that it's fully descriptive, so that anyone who picked up that narrative would be able to understand exactly what you were trying to tell us, because we definitely know you're doing some really wonderful work out there, and we want to hear about it. So we're very excited about that, and we want to make sure we give you a proper and thorough analysis.
Okay, thanks, Rhonda. I think with that, I'm not seeing any questions at the moment. So while everyone's kind of thinking about things, I want to just go up and pull up the template here so that we can maybe review it a little bit. So you can kind of see what it looks like. I know it's not the clearest, but a few things to note about this template is, again, at the top, you'll find some definitions for each of the measures. So each tab, will have a different measure on it, and this is the student outcome 1, and it's number and percentage of students that successfully complete developmental education. And just please be sure to follow the various guides here. You will need to define the cohort, and it should be a cohort that's pretty large, like all first-time in college students. It can't be all students that received some sort a specific intervention. It has to be a larger cohort, such as first time in college or all developmental ed. Rhonda, do you want to say a bit about that, defining the cohort?
Sure. I think it gets pretty obvious that if you're dealing with a particular measure related to developmental ed, that you have some flexibility in the sense that you would want to include a cohort that may have been referred to developmental math or referred to developmental education overall or developmental English. You have that flexibility to work with that group, and it could be FDIC, but it also could be referrals that are new students to your college that fall. When you come to something like retention, you may be choosing a much larger population. You wouldn't want to focus on a very small population of just entering students that had developmental ed requirements only. You wouldn't want to, even though that can be a large population, you want a retention rate that's more reflective of the majority of your students. You wouldn't want to choose part-time or full-time only, although if you have large enough segments, that could be an interesting study. So just use good sense about what is involved in measuring that particular indicator, and consider carefully what you include in your completion indicator. For example, if you had a very narrow completion group of just those students who came into your college-ready needing no developmental ed, that wouldn't be a very good indicator of a good success rate as far as completion. So we'd want you to look at something much broader and more representative of your institution. And we certainly welcome your questions on any of these templates.
Yeah, and so Linda from Bravo Sport did have a question. Rhonda said, she said, unless all those FDIC are actually also served by an intervention, right? So obviously if you have an entire population that's being served by some sort of an intervention, such as all FDIC students get new student orientation, and that's what you're talking about, then of course that would make sense, and that's pretty much you're scaling the max there to reach all the students.
Absolutely, that is very appropriate and excellent. We love it when our colleges are going to scale on any of these interventions.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions about the application or the data, how to define various pieces of the data? Not seeing any questions here. Okay, well, we'll just give it another minute, and then, oh, we do have a question. So, Vanessa, you are now unmuted, so you can speak if you'd like.
This is Casey Finney. I'm sitting in for Vanessa. And the question she had with regard to the discussion of data measures, previously we had to show 3 consecutive years of improvement on a measure. Will the methodology be the same this time?
Yes, ideally you should show an upward trend. So that's not necessarily 3 consecutive years of improvement. It's always been an upward trend, so higher than the baseline. We understand that there's some fluctuation from year to year. That being said, we realize that colleges have faced some extraordinary circumstances over the past few years, especially with the economy, and if you have the data and it's not necessarily as completely upward, we will consider that. What we're really looking for is a deep understanding of the data and a good analysis of it to understand why that might not be an upward trend.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Good question. Any other questions?
I have another if you can.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. With regard to the annual reflection, previously I believe you did a survey or discussion section to show the college buy-in. Are you going to be looking for something similar for Leader College recertification?
So I think what you're referring to is the principal's assessment.
Yes.
And that the principal's assessment was done, and an analysis of that was put into the annual reflection. That analysis will be what we go to look for when considering the Leader College recertification. So there's no new submission that needs to be done by a college. As long as you've submitted your annual reflection and included that assessment of, that analysis of what you did with the principal's assessment before, that's all you need to do.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay. Sort of. I know it'll make sense to Vanessa. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Any other questions? Those were good questions. Okay, well, if there are no other questions, I will go ahead and end the webinar. I just hope that you will reach out to us if you have any questions as you're going through the application. We're certainly here to help you walk through it or talk through anything or any questions that you might have. So thank you all for joining us today, and thank you, Rhonda, for your wonderful input as always. And we will be posting this recording so that you can review it if you'd like. But thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
The organizer